All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Colorado Pollinator Month, and welcome to PPAN's June webinar, Community Science in Action, Exploring Nature with iNaturalist. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our incredible speaker for today, Dr. Julie Morris. My name is Anna Gray Anderson, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for People and Pollinators Action Network, or PPAN for short. For those of you who aren't familiar with our webinar series, we usually host a monthly event, so be sure to sign up for our e-news and check out our events calendar to keep up to date with all of our upcoming events. And we can put this link in the chat for you. We've prepared a great session for you today, but first we just wanted to tell you a little bit about us. So we are People and Pollinators Action Network, or PPAN, the host of this webinar. We focus a lot on making Colorado a safe haven for all who live here, from people to pollinators. And we do this through grassroots advocacy, education, and outreach, kind of like this webinar as an example. We also do a lot of policy, community mobilization, and habitat creation work. A good example of that is our Habitat Fund grants program, which is based on the sales of the pollinator license plate, and those sales go towards creating pollinator safe spaces while promoting community mobilization. And if you haven't gotten that pollinator license plate yet, we can put a link in the chat for you as well. And again, happy Colorado Pollinator Month. So June is Colorado Pollinator Month, and since 2017, PPAN has worked with Governors Hickenlooper and Polis to establish Colorado Pollinator Month through a statewide proclamation. So that means that 2025 actually marks 9 straight years of statewide recognition and growing support for pollinators and their habitats. We have a few ways we're celebrating this month. The first of which is our limited time PPAN Protect Our Pollinators t-shirts. These t-shirts can only be purchased in the month of June, and we've got an array of styles and colors for you to choose from. We'll also put a link in the chat to this. Next, we encourage you to check out our events calendar, which is especially full this month for ways for you to get involved. One event we're really excited about is the Big Day of Bugs on June 27th, which is at the Denver Botanic Gardens. This is a family fun event where you can learn all about pollinators and the ecosystems they support. We're also expecting the governor and first gentleman to stop by, so that's pretty exciting. And there's also some satellite Big Day of Bugs events throughout the Front Range that you can check out on that calendar as well. And as a part of the Big Day of Bugs and Colorado Pollinator Month, we are encouraging folks to collect observations of pollinators and the plants that they visit within Colorado throughout the month of June via iNaturalist. Today's webinar will really give you the tools to contribute to that community science through this Big Day of Bugs iNaturalist project, if you want to sign up for that. So, feel free to go out into your garden and local park and just see what's out there. And I know I just went through a lot of information and fun things, so we'll be putting all of these links in the chat, and all of this information in our follow-up email. And one more thing here, just to emphasize the significance of the Protect Our Pollinators license plate. PPAN championed the legislation that created this plate, and the majority of the donations from the plate go directly to our Protect Our Pollinators Habitat Fund grants program. So by getting a plate, you'll be contributing directly to getting more native plants in the ground, which leads to more pollinators. So we're really grateful to have Julie Morris with us here today. Julie is a full teaching professor in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Denver. Her work focuses on biology education and outreach, especially environmental education and strategies to improve engagement and learning effectiveness in large introductory and non-majors biology courses. She is passionate about preserving biodiversity and is actively involved in several sustainability initiatives on campus and in the surrounding community, including managing DU's community garden. And we really planned this webinar to complement the Big Day of Doug's iNaturalist project and to help you get started with making observations. So before we get started, and as a reminder, please stay muted. Please leave your questions in the chat and we will keep track of those questions. We are recording this presentation and we'll post it to our YouTube channel soon. And we also encourage you to make a donation today so that PPAN can continue to host this free webinar series. And these donations will also help support our education, advocacy, and habitat creation efforts. A donation of any size really does make a difference, so thank you for your consideration. And another way to support this work is by doing any of the fun Colorado Pollinator Month activities we mentioned and getting that license plate. And again, we'll put these links in the chat. And happy Colorado Pollinator Month. And I'll pass it off to Julie.
Thanks, Anna Gray. Let me just do the magic slide sharing here. And there, hopefully. Hopefully we are now seeing some slides. So yes, thank you all for coming today. And I just want to start by saying that I am not specifically associated with iNaturalist, nor would I classify myself as a super expert, but I am an enthusiast and have been using it for a little while and hopefully can share some of the things I've learned along the way, and also through some work that I've done helping my students use it, and give you a little background on what iNaturalist is and why it's kind of a cool project to be involved with. So that's the plan. And before we get into the iNaturalist, I wanted to just say a little bit about myself and how basically how I got here. And so I am a Colorado native. I grew up in Western Colorado in Fruita, and spent most of my life outdoors. My tree hugging tendencies started very early in life and have continued. My dad worked for the Colorado Division of Wildlife, and I did not know it was weird that my best friend was a raccoon. Sort of grew up with out in nature, basically most of my life, which was a great way. So inspired, and then somehow I ended up as an art major in undergrad and wandered around and ended up back studying biodiversity, which isn't surprising in the long run. So I now try to inspire undergraduate students to enjoy nature as much as I do, and to appreciate what it does for us. And as much as possible, I like to actually get them out in there. I think it is less common than it was when I was a kid to be able to play outside, to go out and spend the day romping around in nature. And so as much as possible, exposing students to that. And a lot of my large introductory courses, it's not possible to take 80 or 100 of them at a time into the field, and so that motivated me to bring a little bit of nature to campus. And so I helped us basically build a little community garden on campus. I guess it's been almost 10 years ago now. It's still a thriving little space. We're very proud of it. And the community garden then sort of led to the beehives. We got some beehives on campus, and the students in the community were very excited about those. And I appreciate honeybees because I do believe they are engaging, and I kind of feel like they are the gateway pollinator to get you excited about pollination and pollinators. And so we pretty quickly went from wanting to start the beekeeping club to starting the Pollination Association. So there's a student org on campus, and we decided that we needed to, it wasn't just about the honeybees, but our native pollinators deserved our attention. And that is what brought me to being working with PPAN, because I was just very impressed with the ability to actually make a difference in the community and change some policies, and so try to do what I can to help support and be involved. So extending the work and excitement about biodiversity and pollinators to the community. And with respect to kind of how I got into some interest in iNaturalist, where that came from. I'm really very interested in especially students who are not science majors and exposing them to science and having them sort of understand information and how science works and the process of science, sort of more important than memorizing 1,000 facts that you will forget right after the exam. And so I kind of became interested in what they call participatory science projects or citizen science or community science. It comes under a lot of words, different vocabulary that goes with that. And there are lots of pretty amazing ways out there where community non-scientists can get involved in actual sort of collecting of data that is useful to scientists. Just to give you an idea, it's not just in the natural sciences. There's, if you like looking at pictures of galaxies, you can do the Galaxy Zoo and help them classify galaxies from astronomy photos. And the Stall Catchers is a cool game where you can help with Alzheimer's research. And there's the Marine Debris Tracker where you can help, track pollution in the ocean. So lots of interesting ones out there that it's possible to contribute to. And my focus really is on the natural sciences side. So outside of our plants and pollinators, there are other things like eBird or the Frog Watch. These are all really fun projects to be involved with, or Nature's Notebook, which is part of the National Phenology Network that records sort of the timing of biological events, when the first flowers open and when the leaves fall off. And those kinds of things are very valuable to scientists sort of studying the timing of biological events and, for example, how those might change with under climate change, those kinds of things. And then, right, getting ever closer to the pollinators that we love. There's just a wonderful list of ways to be involved on the Xerces Society's page. So many wonderful resources there. If you're interested, the entire website is full of spectacular information. And then there are ones specific to pollinators, like the Great Sunflower Project and the Bumblebee Watch, and various monarch butterfly watches and things, which are great. And sort of the sister project to iNaturalist is a really great little app called Seek. And this is great if, for example, you're getting kids started early, or you're really just interested in the sort of ID side of what iNaturalist does. And it's fun. It sort of makes it a game and gives you little badges for finding things in nature. And it does incorporate the sort of identification features that I'll talk about in iNaturalist as well. So Seek is a good one, I would say, a beginner one, maybe a gateway to iNaturalist, and a good way to sort of start practice and have fun with it. But what I want to talk more about today is the iNaturalist app itself. And Um, this is a pretty cool project. I've sort of been aware of it for a long time, and I'm happy that it has sort of gained a footing over time. The project itself, just to give you a little bit of history, was launched in 2008 by students. It was actually a master's degree program at UC Berkeley in their School of Information. And there was a set of students that worked on sort of the initial creating of the app and things in 2008. And when those students graduated, some of them sort of stayed with the project and kept working on it and made it a little LLC and got more and more people to join. And then it was sort of by 2014, it had gotten enough attention that, and they were sort of thinking about seeing that it was valuable enough that want to sort of make it more official and institutionalize it a little bit. And so the California Academy of Sciences picked it up as an initiative. And a few years later, they brought in the National Geographic Society, and they sort of co-supported it until very recently. And it's gotten enough support that it in 2023 became independent nonprofit. So it is its own nonprofit organization now. And it's sort of there's a entire global network that this is attached to. So it's still sort of based and housed in the US, but there are now iNaturalist global community, which is the other thing that's really exciting, as you can get on here and be part of nature lovers in all parts of the world. And if you're going to travel somewhere, those kinds of things, you can get on and see what you might see and record your observations while you're there and be part of an entire global community. So a few things about how iNaturalist works. There's sort of different parts of it, and you can be involved in all of it. So um, uh, sort of, I would say the base is the app, which you can put on your various devices, and with photos that you take from nature, you can put your photos on there and it will help you identify them. And it starts out by sort of, there is now sort of generative AI technology built into the application that even over the last year, I've seen a huge difference in how much that is sort of improved the AI. It's still not perfect, but it will give you a place to start, and will sort of suggest IDs. And then what's kind of special about iNaturalist is the community behind that. So once you record your observation, it's sort of published to the platform, and there's a crowd source of participants out there that will look at your observations and potentially agree with or suggest alternatives or refinements to what's going on. And so the community part is pretty cool. So as of this morning, this is data hot off the presses, just an hour or so ago. There's basically a record of 250 million observations around the globe, and there are map variations as well. This view that I'm showing you is on sort of the desktop, sort of online part of the app, and I will show you that in a couple of minutes, sort of what that looks like. And you can see, a little over 500,000 species identified. And then this group that's sort of listed as the identifiers are folks that are in there and sort of making comments. It's sort of a social network of naturalists around the world that are interested in biodiversity and will working on projects in different areas. And they're the ones that you'll get messages from in the app if they or have suggestions for your observations. So a pretty impressive network to be a part of. And the other sort of unique thing about iNaturalist is that it is used the data that everyone produces, the records can be used by scientists in a lot of ways. So I just grabbed a few papers in the last few years, scientific research using iNaturalist data to actually make discoveries. And here's one where they were looking at damselfly wing shape and how that varied across the distribution of the damselfly. Or a group studying how climate change and different environments might drive when flowers open and how long plants flower. So there's time data associated with this. There's a study on an invasive species, invasive ladybug in Argentina. And again, sort of the number of records that can be collected by the public really allows for a lot more data than scientists would have the time or resources to collect on their own. Here's a new, very rare bumblebee species spotted in the Philippines with an iNaturalist observation. And also increasingly, there's also information, and this is where, especially with the Pollinator Month coming up, recording, basically there is information, for example, if you take a picture of a pollinator on a flower, there's actually information about the behavior of the pollinators in addition to the in addition to the record of their existence, it's also providing data about their behaviors, what flowers they are visiting, at what time of year, and these kinds of things. And all of the data is also, along with a lot of other biodiversity data around the world, is automatically included in an even bigger consortium called the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which is a great way to sort of for scientists can ask all kinds of questions and have access to these data to build on the data that they collect as well. So all of those things together are what I think make it an exciting community to be a part of. And I've used it on my own a little bit, but also as a tool to kind of help get my students involved. And most recently, I started a project for one of the classes that I teach at our mountain campus. And we're about to go do that again. But one thing that you can do in here is create projects and draw a little line around a map or create your own collection in your backyard. There are various ways to start your own little project within iNaturalist if you really want to get involved. And so the students for this class, let's see, there we go. Spent some days collecting. So instead of collecting physical specimens at the mountain campus, which potentially disturbs the organisms and might be counterproductive to conservation, we're able to collect a photo collection and get a feel for all of the different kinds of organisms that surround us. iNaturalist keeps track of these data for your project as well. And so you can see, for example, who's made the most observations and how many species and which species have been observed more often. It automatically sort of consolidates this information for you, which makes it fun. And so if you get, for example, if you get involved in the big day of bugs, you can check the leaderboard and see in that particular project. And I'll show you in a bit how to become part of a project so that the data that you're collecting is included and collected for the project as well. Um, so I just want to give a little bit of advice about using it. And mainly I would say just get in there and try and play with it because that is how I've learned. But a few things that I would point out. Basically, to start, you need to download the app, and there are um, versions for all different kinds of devices, including iPads and tablets and various types of phones. So you need the app on your phone. And then to create an account, which you can do from the phone, but I think is also easy to just go to the website and create an account there. And with those two things, you can basically jump in and start being part of it. And uh, then the fun part sort of becomes you could stop there and get your observations identified and create your own sort of collection, or you can engage, take it to the next step and engage with the community and have your observations be part of science and projects like community bio blitzes and the big day of bug type of activities. A couple of hints. One thing is that the location data of your photos is very important piece of the data. And our photos, they tend to, they will mark those automatically unless you have that option turned off on your phone. And I am one, for example, that doesn't always want every app to have my location, but the nice thing is with things you can basically have a choice of who you allow to have location data. And what I would recommend there is just to Google your particular device and ask ask how to do that on your device because it's always going to be slightly different. But in the settings under privacy somewhere, there's a section called location services, and that's where you can choose, you can turn it on and off. Like I'm going to go collect photos for iNaturalist today, so I want my photos to be marked with my location. And I would like iNaturalist to have my location information, and you can turn that on and off in your phone if you're worried about it, because it is nice that it will do it. It will do it automatically. So that's just a little location information, which if you're just doing the project for yourself, is not maybe not as important for you. But if you want to contribute to the science part of it, that location data is a really important part of the piece. And then just a few other tips for um, taking photos that are the most useful scientifically. And basically the take-home message is that the more information that could be used to identify a particular organism that you have in your photos and collection of photos, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, the more likely your identifications will be accurate, and the more likely that your observations may be elevated to what's called a research grade observation, which I can talk a little bit more about. But I just have a few tips for plants and insects, since those are the things that we're going to be most excited about this month. So with plants, the types of um, the types of information that are going to be most helpful to make an accurate identification would be it's good to have a picture of the whole plant, but then you want to collect some potential details as well. And sometimes that requires more than one photo, and that's actually highly encouraged in iNaturalist. So for example, some information about the leaves. So a picture just of a leaf, and you could tell things like what is the shape of the leaf, what does the edge of the leaf look like, how are the veins arranged in the leaf. All of those are helpful pieces of data. And then also things like how the leaves are attached to the stem. Getting some details related to that are helpful. If there are reproductive structures, that is always going to be important. And so how many flowers, maybe some close up on a flower so you can see how the parts inside of the flower are arranged are super helpful. Any kinds of fruits or seeds on there. Sometimes they're not on there at the same time. So it might not be flowering, but if it's fruiting, that information is also really important and also helps, for example, with those studies looking at the timing of events. And even if you're interested in a particular area, going back more than once and even taking photos of the same plant at different times is potentially useful. Things like the texture of the stem or the bark. Um, and and then with plants as well, I usually recommend to my students that they have one photo that shows the habitat, like what kind of a community are these plants in, and what I call the habit, what is called the habit, which is sort of how the plant is shaped, and then you can narrow in on some of these great details, and that would make a very great plant observations. With our pollinators, which are mostly going to be insects as we are out in our gardens. Hopefully, maybe you'll see some hummingbirds and things like that as well, although it's hard to get photos of those things. But for our pollinators, the characteristics that are used that are most helpful in identifying insects have to do sort of with their body structure, like looking at sort of how the different segments of the body are attached to each other, and sort of what the overall size and shape and color is. Wings, if you can tell something about how many wings and get photos from the top and from the side and from the front, sort of narrowing in on some specific features. All of these things just give more information that will get closer to a more specific identification. Legs are a very important part of insects. How many of them and how they attached, and the antenna and the eyes and the mouth parts. So usually I tell my students to try to maybe get one kind of from the front, sort of the top, and from the face, sort of straight on, and one from the side. Um, and and the more of these kinds of things that you can connect in your photo, the better. You can get a decent identification with one photo, so extra photos are not a requirement. But the more information you have in your photos, the more accurate your identification will be, and the more useful it will be to the scientific community. And then just a little information about, for example, joining a particular project. And I'll show you a quick tour of the website in a minute. But you, for example, in the community section of iNaturalist, you can, in this little drop-down box, it will give you, it will show you communities you've already joined. It will recommend communities you might want to be part of. It can, for example, if you let it know it's your location, it will tell you projects that are in your location. And you can also search. So, for example, if it wasn't recommending the big day of bugs, you could put that in the search. And then when you get to the particular page, there is an option to join the project. And then the nice thing is all the observations that you make will be included in the data for that project as well. So I think that with that, I'll just show you really quick some other cool things about the website. So I'm already logged in to my page, and you, for example, the Explore, if you just want to look around and see what's happening in the rest of the world or search for a particular location, if you want to, if you're going to Peru next month, you can focus in on that. Or if you're interested in a particular species and you want to be involved in that committee, you can do sort of cool searches in that. And in the observations, sort of keeps track of where your observations are in a map or a grid or a list. You can have a record of when you collected it and the place you collected and the time, which is kind of interesting. And then here under community is where I was talking about the projects. So you can see projects that you are involved in. I'll put a plug in for another upcoming cool project, the Washington Park Mount Vernon Garden BioBlitz. That will be upcoming, and I will actually be there that day and can help with the iNaturalist on your particular advice in person if you are interested. So just another plug for a cool project this month. And you can also just see what's happening in the world. The City Nature Challenge is a really fun one that happens every year in the spring with cities all around the world, and the Denver Boulder Consortium participates in that every year, which is fun. And then just on the dashboard, there's always interesting news on the side as well. So you can see news about a rare bird or a rare insect that was collected. And if you scroll down, these forums, if you really want to get into being an advanced iNaturalist user, these forums are really fun just to see what people are talking about and what projects they are interested in. And just to kind of show you an example of how the community works, this is a person who made a comment on one of my observations. And so you can say, you can do a little research, and if you basically agree, you can become sort of part of that particular observation. And you can see sort of the history of how that observation has changed over time. And if you're interested in that species, you can connect with people who are obviously very interested in that species. So there are there's kind of an unending ending amount of rabbit hole that you can go down within the app, depending upon whether you just want to be interested on the service and create something for yourself, or whether you really want to dive into the forums and the projects and even become an identifier and active user yourself. So um, just a little bit of fun to see the rest of the website. And I can also answer questions about all of this, but I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I think maybe I will stop there and then would be happy to take questions. Maybe you've been piling them up in the chat, and Anna Gray can help me with that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. That was so fun, and it really made me want to like go outside right now and get some observations.
Yeah.
We do
It's
have
really fun because it is really a social network of nature enthusiasts that's really fun to be a part of.
yeah, that's awesome. And it's really was cool to see the projects your students have done and yeah, just kind of getting people more interested in biodiversity. Um, we do have one question kind of on the more technical side of iNaturalist, which would be how do you add existing observations to a project? Like maybe you've already taken a picture of something before you joined iNaturalist and now want to add it in.
Yeah, that is a good question. So, when you first go into the app, there's a couple different ways to do it, but in the app, it will give you a choice of um, when you open it, I think it will sort of automatically go to the AI, but there's a little spot over on the right hand side, sort of at the bottom, that allows you to choose a photo basically the same way that you would, choose from inside some other social media. And then you can go to your photos and add from the photos on your phone rather than live. And actually, I tend to do that because I'm often collecting in places where there isn't the network. So I basically take the photos and make sure that my location information is on so that my photo has location data with it. And I'll just spend the whole day taking photos. And then at the end of the day, with a beverage or a nice snack, I like to sit down and then put the observations in. So there's a couple ways to do that, but it definitely is possible within the app to grab the observation from your photo deck instead of front live.
Got it. Thank you. That's super helpful.
And also inside of that, the other thing I was going to say is it would be similar. Let me just share my screen again real quick, and I can show you. Um,
And maybe a kind of similar question as well that goes along with that is so someone who's already added observations on iNaturalist but is now going to join the Big Day of Bugs project, how do they get those observations to go in that project?
um, you just join the project and it will happen automatically.
Great. That is
Yeah.
very nice.
Yes. So after you are sort of in the project, then observations that you make that fall inside the requirements. So when you set up a project, the project leaders set certain requirements, and if your observations fall inside of those, it all happens automatically. You don't have to do it separately, which is nice. Um, with respect to a particular observation, so if I click on this observation, the other thing you can do is edit it, which is also a little bit more advanced. So you could add locations that way. That's a much harder thing to do it. Or you can also add photos here. So I'll often start with the one picture of my plant in the app. And then I will come back and add my other views or one picture of the insect. These insects were cooperating, so I got both views in one photo. But for example, if I was going to take a picture of this cool little beetle, and I had both of these photos separately, you can add this little add photo button, and you can take photos from your device that way, and basically you can add photos to one observation. You can have more than one photo in a single observation, and you can do that from the edit notes. You can put your own tags and notes and stuff in there as well. Um, and so that's one way to sort of change things once you already have observations as well.
Great, thank you. And there is another question in here. Is there any attendance link for certificate? I am not sure what that means, but maybe you know.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe if are they asking about attendance in this webinar? Maybe they get some credit for attending a webinar. Or if I guess I would need more clarification on that question. Uh, yeah, because if it's about the webinar, that's probably to you, Anna Gray. And if it's about iNaturalist, if you're in the projects, all of those things will just happen automatically in your account.
Okay, great. Yeah, I will see if that more clarification on that question pops up. But the next one is kind of what is or how do you bring attention to an observation that needs IDing assistance?
Yeah, so you can actually reach out. Like um, you could go in just like you would in a social network and find you could search for the particular group of organisms that you are interested in and the region, and see who are the top identifiers for those things in your region. um, and and you can send messages through that way. Also, those people will tend to find you as long as you have suggested a um, an identification that's sort of as close as you can get. Then that suggested identification will, people who are, say, interested in butterflies in Colorado are just going to watch the community of butterflies. People in Colorado will watch those for those and will occasionally update. So occasionally I get messages on things like many months after I've actually made the observations as people go in and start looking for things. So
Cool. Our next question is, can you speak to the difference of using iNaturalist to contribute to a project versus using it for yourself to ID things? And are projects looking for lots of observations?
yeah, I mean, people create projects because they're interested in collecting observations from other people as well, and being part of the community. But you don't have to be part of a project, so it just kind of depends on where your own interest lies. And so you know, in your account, you'll just have your observations that you made, um, and and they'll still be people will still see them in the cloud, right? So you'll still have access to the identifiers that are interested in your work. Um, but it won't be sort of collected other than for all of iNaturalist, those data are collected at the top level. So it's just the different, whether you want to see your collection in the context of other people working in the same area, or whether you're just interested in the pollinators in your own garden. Both of those are great uses of this app.
Awesome, thank you.
And if you're not interested in the science part at all, and you know, not as much sort of recording the locations and all of that, if that sounds like more work than you want to put in, I would actually really recommend the Seek app because it's very fun, and it's just more, you can still get the identification advice, And then it's like a little game, like a special collection. And then the location data they don't even keep location data in that particular app. So that's another good one to just sort of play with and see how deeply you want to get into it.
Okay, cool. That's a good distinction. And someone's also wondering what the distinction is between the regular iNaturalist and then iNaturalist Classic. Because I think, yeah, when you go on the App Store, there's a few different ones.
Yes, there are. And I have them both on my phone right now because the new one is fairly new. And so it's incorporated more of the generative AI part of it. And it has a slightly different arrangement. All the same parts are there. Um, and um I played with it recently. I did find a few, the app still had like a few little hiccups. So I think that I would consider maybe the new one still in a little bit of beta development. Whereas the classic is the one that's sort of been running for a longer period of time. And so it's everything's basically the same. It's just how to find the menus and how to upload is a little bit different in the two apps, but you can sign into both with the same account. So your account is separate from the app, if that makes sense. So you'll create your account, and then you can sign into both apps depending upon which one is easier for you to use, I would say.
Okay, that's a good tip. Kind of speaking of AI, we had a comment here about how iNaturalist will be receiving a grant from Google to explore increased use of AI. And just kind of like, what do you think about that and reaction to that?
I think it's an interesting place to start, and I also think it's really important that platforms like iNaturalist have funding. Um, yeah, but in my own personal experience, um, well, I mean the technology is getting better. And as with any other generative AI projects, there are all kinds of um, things to think about outside of how well it works, which I won't go into all of those things, but focusing on how well it works, I think it's a good place to start the conversation. And in with some organisms, or depending again on how good your photo is at sort of capturing um, particular characteristics, uh, it may be more or less accurate. But often it's a good place to start, and we will get attention of the actual humans in the background, all of those identifiers, experts and enthusiasts in particular groups that will come in and then comment and clarify that. So that's actually one thing that iNaturalist has that is different, is the community of identifiers behind, in addition to the initial AI identification.
Okay, cool. Another question we have here is linking pollinator observations to the plant they visit by including associated species within iNaturalist. And how exactly do you do that in there?
Yeah, that's all done in that edit. You could do that in the edit button. So let me just share again. Um, Hang on. Share. So if you were looking at a particular uh, and I wanted to add, say, maybe information that I found out about this plant or something, if you hit edit on your observation, you can add notes and tags and other information here. So that would be a good place. Also, if the plant, for example, you could include different pictures of the plant in the photos. And this is also an important thing. I didn't mention this. Um, iNaturalist is definitely more interested in things in their natural habitat, which is definitely the pollinators in your garden, but maybe not the plants in your garden. Does that make sense? And so definitely plants out in natural habitats. But if you want to have a little record of the plants in your garden, you can mark it as cultivated. And then they know it's a garden plant versus something that is wild or naturalized in that place. But this is a good place for adding information about context.
Great, thank you. Let's see. All right. There is another question in here about which once we newbies have tried using the app, who can answer new questions they may have. Um, yes, and Joyce said just come to one of the events for in-person support for the Big Day of Bugs, or I
Yes.
imagine there's also a support button on iNaturalist somewhere.
Yeah, no, there's definitely help, and there's all of those forums, so some of those forums are just help forums on there. And I've also had some luck just sort of like Googling how to and asking the internet community. That helps as well. And yeah, definitely coming to an event where you can be around someone who's used it more often is great. So the Big Day of Bugs or the Wash Park event, I will be there. And yes, I think yeah, there's a couple of us that have used iNaturalist that will be at that event. And so yes, iNaturalisting with a friend is a good way to go. And then just practice, play around, push buttons, see what happens. You can always delete observations as well in case you accidentally, observe your toe or something. That happens occasionally, but yeah, you can't really do it wrong. You can change things in there. You find photos of people's dogs and stuff in there sometime. And those are recorded there, but they're not going to reach the grade of research grade to be used in citizen science with those kinds of things.
Right. Cute.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we're right about on time here. Another kind of exciting event coming up is the Colorado Pollinator Summit, which is going to be in mid-November, and they're actually going to have a report on the Pollinator Month iNaturalist observations, so save the date for that. But thank you so much, Julie. This was so informative. I want to go outside right now and get some observations. And thank you to all of those who joined and your interest in community science. And reminder to do all of those fun Colorado Pollinator Month activities. Go to the Mount Vernon Garden Bio Blitz. And yeah, just thank you again, Julie. And we will see everyone next time.
Thank you all. Have fun.
Thank you. Bye.